Welcome back to Fox Explainer. Today I'm going to show you a drama thriller movie from 2018 called 10 by 10. Spoilers ahead. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Watch out and take care. The film begins with the main character, Kathy Newland, going about her daily routine. She operates her flower shop, consumes breakfast at the diner across the street, and attends yoga classes. Robert Lewis, a strange man, has been following her the entire time. While Kathy is at yoga, Lewis waits outside and examines her vehicle before retrieving a firearm, a plastic bag, zip ties, tape, and a newspaper from his trunk. After placing all of his belongings in the front seat of his car, he waits and receives a call from his maid, Alindra, who confirms that everything is in order for tonight. After the yoga classes conclude, Kathy has a conversation with another woman in the locker room, where she expresses clear disapproval when the other woman implies she wants to cheat on her husband. Afterward, she goes to the parking lot, ready to return home, but Lewis pounces on her just as she reaches her car. He attempts to suffocate her by placing a plastic bag over her head and throwing her to the ground, but Kathy is able to push him away and remove the bag. The only person nearby has headphones on and cannot hear her cries for assistance. This affords Lewis another opportunity to grab her, and he threatens to kill her if she makes another sound before taping her mouth shut and tying her wrists and ankles with zip ties. Lewis leaves Kathy on the ground while he returns to his car, waits for the vehicle adjacent to Kathy to leave, and then assumes the parking spot. There, he picks up Kathy, locks her in his trunk, and drives away. On his way home, a police car stops next to him at the traffic light, but he maintains his composure and avoids suspicion. When he arrives home a few moments later, the garage door gets stuck halfway up, so he must manually finish raising it and place a broom underneath it to keep it from falling. Lewis takes the time to turn the vehicle around and enter the garage in reverse, so the trunk is the first to enter. He removes Kathy from the trunk and drags her through the house while her bleeding feet leave bloody footprints on the floor. Lewis locks her in a 10 by 10 cellar and conceals her behind a fake wall and a table with a vase on it. While Kathy struggles against her restraints, Lewis prepares some food, returns to his car to retrieve his belongings and her bag, and then pays Kathy a visit. He informs her that the walls are soundproof, so there is no need to yell, and that he will remove the tape so she can tell him her name. Lewis removes the tape after Kathy indicates her comprehension, but she begins screaming again, so he leaves her alone and goes to his office. He then mutes the sound after confirming on his computer that everything in the cellar is being recorded. He then begins cleaning the bloodstains from his floor. Kathy manages to stand up and begins slamming her entire body against the door without success. She decides to try something else when she notices that the room has a vent, as kicking the wall panels is also unsuccessful. She gets as close as she can and tries to scream for help, but the house is located in a remote area, so no one can hear her. Lewis revisits Kathy after reloading his gun while listening to an old news recording in which it is mentioned that a case will be reopened if evidence that 3 deaths were not natural surfaces. She asks him not to touch her and offers him the $50,000 she has saved. Lewis observes that this is a lot of money for a person in her line of work. However, he is only interested in her name and not her money. She responds, Kathy Newland, which disappoints him and causes him to leave. Lewis returns to the kitchen and searches through Kathy's bag, but finds nothing useful. He then resumes watching old news broadcasts. This time, according to the reporter, the evidence was insufficient to prove an unnatural death, so the case was closed and the families planned to appeal. While Lewis returns to cooking, Kathy exerts maximum effort to bend her body and succeeds in bringing her bound hands forward. When Lewis goes to fetch Kathy for lunch, Kathy is already waiting for him behind the door and immediately attacks him. She punches him until he's on the ground and kicks him as she leaves the room. Once she's outside, she grabs the vase from the table and smashes it on his head. Kathy drags herself to Lewis' office and attempts to call the police on the landline, but Lewis arrives and shoots the phone. As he approaches, she grabs a paperweight from the desk and strikes him with it, knocking him unconscious for a few seconds. Before attempting to leave the house, she searches the kitchen drawers for a knife and removes the bindings from her ankles. All the doors are locked, which is unfortunate. Lewis then awakens, and Kathy asks him how he knows what her occupation is, but his only response is to sit down at the table and invite her to lunch with him. He asks her again for her name while he is eating, and she responds, Kathy Newland. Lewis reminds him that he has a firearm and that firearms are superior to knives. so Kathy accepts his invitation to sit at the table but refuses to eat. After stating that if he desired for her to be dead, he would have already killed her, he requests her name once more. He becomes enraged and throws his plate at Kathy after she provides the same response to his question. They both leave the table as Lewis approaches Kathy with his gun drawn. Kathy knocks the gun from Lewis's hands and attempts to punch him, but Lewis pushes her against the kitchen counter in response. Kathy gets him off of her by biting him, and then she puts her bound wrists around his neck to choke him. But it's not enough to knock him out, so when she tries to run away, he knocks her out with a punch and takes her back to the cellar. When he gets back to the kitchen, his maid Alindra is there. She came over because he had never told her if he would need her today or not. Lewis tells her she isn't needed and sends her away, but Alindra insists on trying to clean up the broken dishes and take care of his wounds. Lewis tells her he's just having one of those days and tries to get her to leave again. Alindra hesitates but agrees, promising to come back the next day with his daughter, who is currently at a sleepover. Lewis cleans up the messes, puts the flowers in a new vase, and washes the bloody knife before checking on Kathy to put butterfly bandages on her cuts. After that, he takes a shower and takes care of his own wounds. Then, he finishes his lunch in front of the TV while watching more old news reports about the Charleston 3. In this case, 3 patients at the All Angels Hospital in Charleston died under mysterious circumstances. Kathy gets her cell phone out of her pants, where she had hidden it, but there's no signal. She puts it away when she sees that one of the floor tiles is broken. Then she gets to work trying to get the broken piece off the floor. Lewis goes back to see Kathy, but this time he brings a chair. He starts to ask her about her name, her birthday, her hometown, her school, her major, how many siblings she has, what her parents do for a living, and how she feels about the church. Lewis isn't happy with any of Kathy's answers. He tells her he's been following her around for months and that everything she just told him is a lie, so he keeps pushing her for the truth. He finally gets Kathy to change her story when he shoots the wall. Her real name is Natalie Ann Stephen. She grew up with her twin sister, Kathy, who killed herself after their father, who was a doctor for a football team, left their mom for a cheerleader. Natalie didn't give up, and she went on to study nursing like her mother. Now that she's told him what he wanted, Lewis tells her she must be wondering why he's taken her, but he says she probably already knows. He then leaves the room again, taking the chair with him. As soon as the door closes, Kathy and Lewis both have a breakdown. Lewis goes back to the living room to watch old videos of him with his family, and Natalie starts working on the broken floor tile again. She doesn't make any progress there, so she pulls out her phone once more and puts it against the vent. This time, she gets a signal. She calls 911 and tries to ask for help, but it's hard because the signal is weak. In the video, Lewis sees a cell phone, which tells him that she took her phone down to the cellar with her. He comes in as soon as she hides it, but he takes it out of her pants, breaks it, and throws the pieces on the floor. Another questioning starts. Natalie says she worked at All Angels Hospital, and Lewis asks her about the patients, including his wife Alana, who died for no reason while she was taking care of them. Natalie tells him that there was a trial and that all the nurses were found to be innocent. She says she only left town because she needed a new start. Lewis doesn't believe her and tells her all the things that made him doubt her story. A man named John Lamptey died because his organs stopped working. He had just passed his medical insurance exam a month before. Alana was missing her wedding ring, which she never took off. She was drunk, which was strange because she didn't drink much, and her body was full of GHB, which is usually used to knock out abuse victims. Lewis doesn't just think Natalie did it. He's sure of it, so he tells her that if she doesn't admit it, she'll die too. Lewis goes back to watch old family videos after making sure his computer is still recording every noise in the cellar. Seeing his dead wife on the screen upsets him, so he runs back to the cellar and puts his gun in front of Natalie's head until she agrees to confess. She and her sister grew up in a very religious family that followed the teachings of the Bible. When Kathy found out that their dad was sleeping with her best friend, she confronted him about it. After that, he left them, leaving them with all this shame. The family became the town's outcasts for something that wasn't their fault. They were being punished for their father's sins. This is what caused Kathy to kill herself. Natalie found her in the barn, hanging from the drafters. Because of this, Natalie has devoted her life to helping people, and her patients always told her their secrets, even the bad ones. All 3 of her victims had done something wrong. John Lamptey had two wives. Jane Spencer told the police that her husband beat her to get the money for the divorce, and Alana was cheating on her husband. Lewis doesn't believe it, but Natalie explains all the clues. This is why Alana was found drunk in a hotel bar, dressed to the nines, and without her wedding ring. Her lover had even visited her at the hospital. Natalie says she killed the Charleston Three because they were bad people, and Lewis leaves the cellar feeling upset after hearing his wife's secret. When he goes back to the living room and watches another video in which Alana acts strangely when she ignores a call on her cell phone, he starts to believe Natalie. Lewis has a breakdown over the confirmation, and he starts breaking things around the house as he screams in anger. After that, he gets in his car and drives away, while Natalie finds a piece of her phone and realizes she can use it as a tool to finally get the tile shard out of the floor. When Lewis gets to the lake he used to go to with his wife, he is met by two police officers who ask him about his wounds and where he lives because they are looking into a call about a car like his. Lewis decides to go back home after the police checked his license and the trunk of his car. He goes into the cellar and kneels down in front of Natalie. He tells her that she had no right to kill his wife before he could talk to her. He also asks her to turn herself in. Natalie responds by stabbing him in the shoulder with the floor tile. Then she kicks him and tells him her name is now Kathy and she won't let him ruin her new, happy life. Lewis gets the shard out of his shoulder, but Natalie punches the wound before running out of the room. She looks for the gun in the kitchen but can't find it, so she grabs a knife and goes back to the cellar. Lewis is waiting for her and tries to lock her in again. Natalie puts her arm in front of the door to stop him. They fight for a minute before Lewis runs away and makes it to the kitchen, where he finds his gun on the floor. Natalie shows up as he's picking it up, knocks it out of his hand, and then starts fighting with him. Eventually, she beats him and takes the gun, which he's pointing at her. At that moment, Alindra and Summer, Lewis's daughter, come into the house with Alindra. Natalie shoots Alindra and then catches Summer when she tries to get to her dad. She points the gun at Summer's head and tells her dad that Summer isn't really his child, but that doesn't matter to Lewis. He tells Natalie that she doesn't have to turn herself in because he won't say anything if she doesn't hurt his daughter. Natalie doesn't believe this because the police will track her call anyway, so Lewis tells him that he recorded everything she said. This distracts Natalie, so Summer bites her arm and runs away. Lewis doesn't wait and goes straight for Natalie. He throws her to the ground and chokes her until he thinks he has knocked her out. As soon as he moves a few steps away, Natalie gets back up, so Lewis shoots her before going to find his daughter. He finds Summer hiding in the cellar, and he takes her with him. They go to the office to get the recording on a USB stick. Summer realizes that Natalie is gone, so Lewis rushes her into the garage. He is putting Summer in the car when he runs into Natalie. She tries to shoot him, but her gun is empty. As Summer gets out of the car and goes outside, they start fighting again. Natalie hits Lewis with different garden tools until she gets the upper hand and puts a pitchfork on his chest, meaning to kill him. Lewis grabs the fork to stop it from stabbing Natalie and pushes until he hits her with it. This makes her fall back against the broom he had been using to keep the garage door open. Without the broom to hold it, the door falls on her and traps her body as she falls asleep. The movie ends with Lewis hugging Summer and saying sorry, while calling her his child as the police arrive. That's all for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe for more and hit the like button to help me out, and also leave a comment if you want me to explain your favorite film. Until next time, take care.